We've been looking at the logical operators known as if statements, where we have if one thing is true, execute code. If not, then do something else. Up until now, we've been stringing these together into several long commands, but I want to look at some ways that we can actually make that a little more efficient. And we're going to do that using something called the switch function. So let's create ourselves a new work area. Do file save as. And I'm just going to call this one logical2 because it's actually going to be really related to the first one. It's not actually a separate subject area, but I do want to clear this out so we have some space to work in. So we'll make this logical expressions : switch, just so we'll remember that it is related. And let's go ahead and just open a PHP tag, and let's set an initial variable called a equal to 3. We know how we can string together a bunch of if and else if statements so that we could say, if a is equal to 0, then do something. If a is equal to 1, then do something else. If a is equal to 2, do something else. If a is equal to 3, do something else. And we could keep going through 20, 30, 40, however many we needed to do. We could go ahead and keep writing those if, else if statements like that. But there's a more efficient way that we can do it. When we're testing one and only one value, and that's the only time that this really works, is we can use the switch statement. And its form is going to be switch the value that we're testing, which in this case is going to be a. We're going to open our brackets, and then inside those brackets, we're going to put case and then whatever that first value is with a colon. So this means in the case when a is 0, we're going to switch it up, but depending on the value of a. And in the case when a is 0, we're going to output echo a equals 0. And then we can have a second case where we say, well, what about when it's going to be 1? And we can say that it's going to a equals 1. And we can keep going with those when a is equal to 2 and 3 and 4. Now, there's one more thing that we need to keep in mind when we're doing case statements that's going to be different from the if, then, else statements. And that's that after each and every one of these, we need to have a command called break. And we're going to talk more about break a little later on when we're looking at loops and we're breaking out of loops. But for now, what you need to know is that it's going to keep the rest of the conditions from executing. Otherwise, once one is satisfied, it's going to keep looking to see if it can satisfy another one. So it's very important that we include the break command in there. So take a look at this, see what it does. We're going to test whether a is equal to 0, 1, 2, or 3 and perform an action. Now, of course, we've set a to equal to 3, so we need one final case, which is going to be called default. And that's, of course, what happens. And we'll say a is not 0, 1, or 2. We'll put in a break statement, and then that's it. We've got our closing braces down here that will close up the switch statement, and that's everything we need to make this run. Let's save it, switch back over to our browser, load up logical2. Remember, we made a new file, and it says a is not 0, 1, or 2. But if we go ahead and make a equal to 2, save it, reload the page, a equals 2. This is a little bit more efficient way for us to write those if-then-else statements when we're testing only one value against several other values, which will happen a lot. You may have something that's set to determine the course of several actions. It's a single number, and we can do it using the switch statement. There's nothing wrong with writing it using all of those if-then-else statements. So if you feel more comfortable with those, that's fine. But I wanted you to at least have this so you would have it in your toolbox as an efficiency tool once we start developing applications. Now that we've thoroughly explored the logical expressions known as if statements, and we've seen how switch can also help us out, we're ready to move on to another type of control structure called loops, and we'll do that in the next chapter.